So we have our introduction, we have our blurbs out of the way. I think we're ready to start this thing. Our first talk for 10 o'clock. You've heard it come out this past year, Nox Archaist. And Mark Lemmert and Chris Torrence want to tell us something about the game and its development. And let's pass it on to Chris and Mark.
Hello, everyone. And we'll get rolling here. Good morning. I'm Mark Lemmert, co-founder of 6502 Workshop and lead developer of Nox Archaist, which was released on December 12th, 2020, after 5 years of development, much to my, Chris's, and our teammates, and I think the community's delight from everything that we've heard. Wanted to say many thanks to our fellow K-Festers who supported the project, to all of our 6502 Workshop teammates and community contributors who helped to make Nox Archaist the best that it.
He's gone now.
Okay.
No, he's just frozen. Hold on. I'll ping him.
It could be. And
he's
hello?
back.
I think you're back.
You're back.
Okay. What was the last thing you heard me say?
Good question.
I think it was you were still thanking like the contributors and the people that made Nox what it is.
Yep.
Okay.
5 years of development. Says the chat.
I'll take it up from the end of that then. The last thank you was to Melody and April Paleotronic for creating the Nox app from a micromade fork, which enabled us to distribute Nox Archaist as a click-and-go application for Windows and Mac OS. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the early development of the game. Chris Torrence is going to talk a little bit about what we've got going on right now. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what's next. So I'm going to share my screen now. All right, can everybody see the slideshow with the Nox Archaist box set on the screen?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So talking about, well, where we've been in this journey through the development process. So this is the very first screenshot that exists that I could find in my archives, and it's almost the first one that would have been even possible. The very first thing I did after the preliminary research phase was I wrote the code to draw a tree. And then I ran it through a loop to draw a row of trees. And then I expanded the loop to draw a screen of trees, which is what's shown on this screenshot. And I remember sharing it with somebody at the time, and they said, well, that's great, but why is the jelly green giant mooning me? So, you know, it's programmer art, got to roll with it. Then next, not too long after that is the first attempt at graphics scrolling. It only works in one direction, got it working in one direction first, and there was a bug in the looping causing artifacts in the kind of outside of the tile grid boundary. That's the goofer coloration there. And then next, this is when I got graphics scrolling working in all four directions. There's no player icon yet, but you can kind of see that the, imagine there's a player icon in the center of the screen. The map is kind of moving in each of the four cardinal directions. And this is a diagram of the line of sight algorithm when I was developing that with some great advice from teammate Beth Daggert. So what you're seeing here is basically a representation of a chunk of the map, and each cell with a number in it is a tile on the map. The green portion is what's visible on screen, and the red cell in the middle, or tile in the middle, is where the player icon is, and then the white tile is a hypothetical line of sight obstacle like a wall or a mountain. And what I did with the black cells is basically kind of project out the cone of darkness that I wanted that obstacle to create in that particular position between the obstacle and the player. And once I had that mapped out on this this map grid, that's when I really sunk my teeth into how to write an algorithm that would calculate mathematically all of those points between the black lines to essentially turn the visibility flag to off. This was one of many diagrams, but just to give a little flavor of kind of some of what was involved there. And this is the first dry run of the line of sight algorithm. And if you imagine there's a player icon in the center, the areas that are dark on the screen make no sense relative to where the mountains are. There were a lot of bugs. I seem to recall it took easily somewhere between a dozen and 2 dozen iterations to squeeze out all the little bugs. It's a very complicated algorithm, but we got there eventually. And this is the very first player icon. Some definite programmer art that I whipped together there. Looks like line of sight was working properly at this point. This is the first animated object. I chose a flag because I thought it would be simple as the first one to do. And this was a test. I mocked up a full screen of animated tiles to make sure that the game engine running at full speed could handle it. From there, I inserted a delay loop, the length of which is adjusted by the number of tiles on the screen, so the animation speed is fairly smooth throughout the game, whether you're standing on the coast with a ton of animated water tiles or you're in the middle of the grassland with 1 or 2 mobs on the screen. The animation always goes at a fairly consistent clip. This is the first attempt at mob movement. And the player chase algorithm was not written yet, so the mob is walking right past the player through the forest and right off the screen. So this is the first test of a multi-tiled mob. And the blinky thing there, that's just some art that I whipped up quickly to do the testing. Lots of edge cases with that when the multi-tiled mob is on the, edge of the screen, no pun intended. And this was the first attempt at the algorithm for quicksand, which didn't turn out too bad, but somehow it got stuck in a loop and got a little silly there. Then, so there was a pre-alpha version of the Nox Archaist game engine, which we made public in March of 2016, which had this map. And I snuck some islands in the shape of 6502 in the center of the map. And as far as I know, it is still able to be downloaded from Kansas Apple II, where I made the original posting when Nox Archaist went public. All right, and so now we have some outtakes, some of my favorite little bloopers and other moments of the game development process. The light switch is flickering there. This is caused by some goofiness with page flipping. High-res page flipping. This at first I thought might be a feature, but didn't make it in. And we've got a runaway arrow, one of the first tests of the projectile launcher. We ended up with a machine gun for a little bit, but couldn't keep that in because it's a sword and sorcery game. We found the cows eventually. People might recognize this kind of mess from putting the wrong disc in the drive for Ultima. Of course, we eventually found more cows. And some of our mobs took to walking on water for a long time until we eventually persuaded them not to. And then during beta testing, somebody cast Summon Shoplifter. This was hilarious. Anyone who's been to Cast of Foolery Nox Archaist can probably understand why this player made this post. Just saying. We're showing this clip of Lady Aileros' live stream Nox Archaist with her permission.
What the heck?
Her encounter with Dysentery was one of the funnest moments of the project for me, seeing her appreciate the humor pretty much to the fullest extent imaginable.
I'm gonna die. But that's okay because this is 100%. This reboot is gonna be 100% worth it. Because that is absolutely the best thing I have ever seen in the history of ever. Wow, that's amazing. That's so good. Well, I'm working on being killed by dysentery, so yeah. Alright, so I want to do that again. But I want to do that with less suck.
Okay, and now Chris Torrence is going to talk a little bit about what we've got going on right now. Take it away, Chris.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Let's see. Can everybody actually see me? There we go. Yeah, so thanks, Mark. And actually, Mark, do you want to turn off the screen sharing?
Sure. There we go.
Great, thank you. All right, so I just have a couple things to talk about. So we did a first production run when the Kickstarter was complete and we finished the game, and then we quickly sold out of that. So we did a second production run about the middle of last year, and then now we've sold that out, and so we're doing a third production run. So here's the box set. We haven't actually gotten any of that. This is one of the last remaining copies from the second production run, which I'm just holding on to in case. So we're going to do a third run, and so if you're interested in getting a copy of it, if you missed it the first couple times, we'll have those available on the Nox Archaist store, and we have both the regular box set, we have a collector's edition, and you can order either one of those with or without floppy disks. We still have a few floppy disks left, so if you still want those, be sure to jump over there. And we're estimating we'll be ordering things in September for that third production run. And then I also have lots of copies of the Nox Archaist Book of Hints. So this is a book that Andrew Schultz put together. It's fantastic. It's a couple hundred pages, all sorts of hints and tips and tricks. It's also organized in terms of hints from easiest to kind of most giveaway. So if you don't want to spoil things, you can just start from the easy hints. And then if you need more help, you can look for a particular quest on how to solve that. And then at the back of the book are all sorts of spoiler-free maps. And then with the book, you also get a download of spoiler-full maps. So if you need that extra help or you just want to see what the maps look like. And that's what I've got here on the Nox Archaist store.
Excellent, thanks, Chris. And I'll also just add that in addition, if you for the third production run, if you missed an earlier run, we've got the third run available. And also, if you didn't miss one of the earlier runs, but you haven't opened the box yet and still have it in the shrink wrap, this is a chance to get another that you can actually open. Or if you did open it but want one in the shrink wrap, either way, we want to make it available for anybody that is still looking to get something there. We'll take it on to the next slide here. Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit about where we are going. Apple IIGS port, that's still the plan. And as everybody interested probably knows, Burger Becky is leading the effort, really is the effort to make that happen. We've all had a rough year, and it was extra rough for Becky between getting caught in the Texas snowpocalypse and a broken leg. I know she's had a lot of downtime from that, so please be patient. I know she is going to do it. It's just, takes time. And we've been asked about the possibility of expansion packs and sequels, and I wanted to address that today as well. No formal announcement to make at this point, but stay tuned. These are projects that we are interested in, and there is a good chance that we'll tackle them at some point. And of course, there is one more thing to talk about today. I am pleased to announce that we're in the process of writing a book titled The Making of Nox Archaist. In this book, we'll talk about how the project got off the ground, some of the technical challenges overcome, and all sorts of stories that capture the excitement and frustrations of bringing a AAA RPG to life on the Apple II. And we have many more development clips similar to those shown today, which we'll use to help illustrate the journey. And we have a pre-order set up for the book. Just head over to order.noxarchaist.com to reserve your copy. We are running a KansasFest special through the end of the weekend, discounted $19.95 for a print edition and ebook bundle. We expect to begin shipping by December 1st of this year, 2021. Bear with me here, technical difficulties. And then Zoom doesn't like to let me stop the screen share. Okay.
Hey, all right. Hey, Mark, just questions. So
yes.
Kevin is asking, will the book have any technical programming info?
It does take well, all matter of perspective. It doesn't get into coding, but it does talk about some of the programming related challenges that came up and how I dealt with them. So I think there is a good flavor there for folks that are interested in that. There's also a lot of higher level discussion and stories and progression of the journey and things of that nature. Kind of like think Jordan Mechner's book Prince of Persia. He had some technical content in there, but also a lot of story of the journey telling. And the way he approached it was a big inspiration for me to how to go about it. And before going to any other questions, I did just want to give a shout out to some fellow Apple II game developers. Big shout out to Lawless Legends, the Apple II RPG coming out soon as we understand it. And shout out to Michael Packard of Snacking on Software. He's working on Alien Downpour 2. It's available to pre-order on his website, berighteous.com. And also shout out to the Apple II arcade-style game Attack of the Petsky Robots, which was ported and released earlier this year by David Murray, the 8-bit guy.
Cool. All right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Mark, here's another question. Are you planning on a boxed 2GS version?
That's to be determined. It's definitely something that Chris and I are going to talk about when the code itself is written. And I don't want to make any specific commitments because, one never knows what twists and turns life is going to take on something that's a ways out into the future yet. So, but I would say it's fair to say that we would certainly like to.
Cool. And then I guess a related question, will the 2GS version be available on 3.5-inch discs?
That's another to be determined question. We'll just have to when the code is written and the beta test is solid. That's the kind of question we ourselves will be digging into to evaluate the logistics of it. But I mean, obviously that would be ideal. No question about that. And we'd certainly love to do it.
Yeah. And actually, Becky answered that it will likely be a single 3.5-inch disc, but at the moment it doesn't fit and we'll need 2 discs. So.
Yeah. So there's 2 dimensions to this. There's can Becky, how does she get it configured as far as what's viable? And if she gets it to fit on 3.5-inch disc, great. Then a second question is, are we going to be able to manage the production of 3.5-inch desks with a box set? So it's really, there's two dimensions to that question. And both are to be determined, of course, on the coding side of it. You know, any comments Becky makes here are obviously authoritative on that part of it. So,
Mark, is my basement going to be full of 3.5-inch discs?
I know that's what you're. See that's why I'm being very careful not to commit to this, because we haven't talked about that.
Oh, she says she can make discs and ship them. Excellent.
Yeah, well, it's so awesome, and we can certainly talk to Becky about that at that time if we want to go that route. Thank you for that offer, Becky.
Yeah, and just to be clear for those, when you buy the game, you get a digital download, and that comes with both a version that you can play on like a hard drive, basically. So it's a 2MG file that you could put onto either a CFFA 3000 or an actual real hard drive. And then it also comes with the floppy disk versions as part of the download, which you could burn onto your own floppies. And then same thing for the box sets. That comes with a USB stick, which actually has both the hard drive image as well as the floppy disk images. So you have a lot of options to play.
And for Chris, you're talking here about the 8-bit version of the game.
This is the 8-bit
available.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Agreed. Any other questions?
Let's see. Somebody had a question about ordering the book Rexadecimal. Maybe just ping me off list, and I'll see what's going on with shipping. Other questions? Mark, I don't remember if you mentioned this, but the game is also available on Steam and Good Old Games or GOG. So if you'd prefer to play it in your Steam or GOG client, you can buy it that way as well.
I didn't mention that. Thank you for mentioning that. As far as we know, Nox Archaist is the first Apple II game on Steam and on Good Old Games. And that was something that we were pretty excited about. And we didn't know that was going to happen. Even when we released the game, it was like, okay, we released it in December, and now let's think about the Steam Good Old Games thing, try to wrap our heads around that. And we didn't even know if Good Old Games would accept our application, because they're a curated environment. So, but somehow, both technologically and business-wise with GOG, it all worked out. So definitely pretty thrilled about that.
Cool. All right, and then a question. Let's see. Can the digital version run on a floppy EMU?
Yes, I have tested it myself on a floppy EMU. I've had it plugged into my 2GS. I've had it plugged into my 2C and my 2C Plus. To use the floppy EMU to run the hard drive version of the game on a floppy EMU on an Apple IIe, that requires a special card. I think it's called the Lyran disk controller card, which is pretty rare.
Okay. I don't see any other questions right now. A couple people are having questions about shipping, and I'll go ahead and I'll see what's going on with the shipping for the Book of Hints. Javier says he's tested it on W drive. I know it works on both the CFFA 3000 and the Booty card as well.
Yes, definitely very solid on CFFA 3000 and Booty. W drive, for some people it works and some it doesn't. That one's a bit flaky, so just to be aware for that for anybody that doesn't have a W drive.
Somebody asked a question about commenting on the business of making a retro game. How good a business is it making a retro games?
That's a great question, and we certainly have had some commercial success with the project, and it hovers between kind of the state of a hobby project that got a little bit out of control and a bit of a small business. But it's really, I don't recommend a retro gaming development career per se, or anybody who isn't primarily doing it for the fun. If you do it for the fun and any kind of monetary side of it is just kind of a bonus, I mean, that's the right mindset to go into it. I don't think it's really, at least at this point, retro is growing, but at least at this point, I don't think it's a sustainable career path like modern indie gaming is, at least for the small percentage of modern indie games that get attention.
Okay. So anything else that you want to comment on? Anything from Chris?
No, I think I'm good. iOS version.
You never know. I don't think that's anything coming soon. There'd certainly be a lot of re-engineering that would be involved with that as far as the user interface and things like that. So certainly nothing imminent. All I can really say at this point is I am interested in continuing to work on Nox Archaist related projects. And I wasn't sure if that was going to be the case after that 5-year-long marathon. So I was really not, I was totally non-committal about everything when the game was released. And now, after having a break, I'm saying, yeah, I'm still interested in working on Nox Archaist related stuff. There's going to be more projects, but exactly what those are going to be and when is still very undetermined. And I don't think an iOS version is going to be, the next thing. That would be a ways out, I would think, in the product roadmap if it were to happen. See a few comments from people that they've placed orders, and thank you very much. And also see a few congratulations comments, and thank you very much for that as well. Any other questions?
Well, we had an interesting one here from Grant R. It says, what are your top 3 pieces of advice for an experienced programmer to jump into coding for the Apple II?
The very first, and I'm assuming this is somebody that's a person with experience with modern programming, but not necessarily with Apple II programming. So if I'm correct on that assumption, I would say first thing, you want to get a good book on Apple II assembly language. I recommend one called Using Assembly Language by Randy Hyde. It's a book that starts at the beginning and doesn't assume that you know a whole bunch of things already about 6502 assembly. And all of its examples are written for the assembler Liza. So you can download Liza and type in the examples and see the results and go through the classical programming learning experience. And that's the first thing I would recommend doing, just to get the kind of the programming chops under one's belt. And then there's the whole game design element and things like that. And that really comes down to play a lot of games, study how they're put together if you haven't already, and then try to relate that in your mind into, okay, well, how might you go about coding that, and then start small, code bits and pieces like I showed in the presentation. The very first thing I did is I drew a tree on the screen, a single tree, just testing out, can I successfully draw a graphic, and then scaled that from there into, all right, well, let's see if I can draw a row of trees and then a whole screen of trees. Basically just a lot of little proofs of concept of each technical challenge along the way, which for somebody versed in programming should feel, I would think, fairly familiar in concept.
Okay, well, that brings us to time for our next talk. Thank you, Mark and Chris, for your discussion about Nox Archaist.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for watching, and thanks for playing.